Welcome back. You're watching Speed News. I'm Shivan Janna. Let's start. The Israeli army has reported that 5 rockets were launched from northern Gaza towards the coastal city of Ashdod in southern Israel. Israel's air defense system successfully intercepted 4 of the rockets, while the 5th landed in an open area near Ashdod port, causing no injuries or damage. The incident triggered air raid sirens in Ashdod and nearby communities, with residents hearing explosions. A massive exodus of Palestinians is underway in Gaza City as Israel intensifies its offensive. Israel's defense minister has given Palestinians their last opportunity to leave, warning that those who stay will be considered militant supporters and face the full force of the military. Over 400,000 Palestinians have already fled famine-stricken Gaza City since Israel launched a major offensive just last month. According to reports, many are struggling to survive, with families separated in the chaos and limited access to basic necessities like food, water and shelter. Israeli naval forces have intercepted an international flotilla attempting to deliver aid in Gaza. The global Flotilla, a convoy of more than 40 civilian boats, was stopped roughly 70 nautical miles from the war-ravaged enclave. It was carrying around 500 activists, parliamentarians and lawyers, including Swedish climate campaigner Greta Thunberg, as it approached Gaza with humanitarian aid. Despite warnings from Israel to turn back, the flotilla persisted in its bid to break the Israeli blockade of Gaza, which has been in place since 2007. The Israeli Foreign Ministry announced that it has intercepted several of these vessels from the Gaza aid flotilla, confirming Greta Thunberg's detention. According to the ministry, Thunberg and other activists are safe and healthy. A video shared by the ministry shows Thunberg with masked and armed Israeli personnel. The last time Thunberg had attempted to make it to Gaza with a flotilla, Israel had deemed it a selfie opportunity. Protesters in Buenos Aires marched outside the Israeli embassy demanding the release of activists detained by Israeli forces after their humanitarian flotilla was intercepted in the Mediterranean. Activists and organizers denounced the interception as a criminal attack and violation of international law. Protesters gathered outside the Greek Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Athens to denounce Israel's interception of the global flotilla, which was carrying humanitarian aid to Gaza. People chanted slogans in support of Palestinians and the global flotilla. Joining global protests, Tunisians gathered in the capital city of Tunis to denounce Israel's interception of the global flotilla carrying aid to Gaza. Hundreds of people chanted slogans supporting the flotilla, which is trying to break Israel's blockade of Gaza. Global flotilla carrying aid to Gaza. Demonstrators chanted anti-Israel slogans, waved Turkish and Palestinian flags, and even urged the Turkish government to take stronger measures in defense of the flotilla. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators blocked traffic in the streets of Rome after reports that the international aid flotilla for Gaza had been intercepted by military personnel. The global Flotilla, which consists of more than 40 civilian boats carrying about 500 parliamentarians, lawyers and activists, includes an Italian contingent. Italian unions also called a general strike for Friday in solidarity with the international aid flotilla for Gaza. Three suspected Hamas members have been arrested in Berlin for allegedly planning attacks on Jewish and Israeli sites. In a statement, the federal prosecutor said the suspects were foreign operatives of Hamas who have been involved in procuring firearms and ammunition for the organization in Germany. But Hamas has denied any connection to these men. According to the prosecutors, an AK-47 assault rifle, several pistols along with a stash of ammunition were seized when the suspects were arrested. They said the weapons were to be used by the group for deadly attacks targeting Israeli or Jewish institutions in Germany. Thousands gathered at an anti-government march in Belgrade some 11 months after a wave of protests was sparked by a fatal roof collapse that killed 16 people at a railway station. The crowd marched across the Gazela bridge, briefly blocking it to traffic in one direction. There were no reports of violence or clashes with police. On Wednesday, student groups across Serbia held a 16-minute silence for the victims. Anti-government demonstrators in Morocco filled the streets for a fifth straight night as protests over the state of public services once again descended into violence and destruction. Protesters have contrasted the government's billions in World Cup preparations with the dire state of public services. US President Donald Trump said soybeans will be a major topic of discussion when he meets Chinese President Xi Jinping in 4 weeks. Trump stated that China's absence from the US soybean market is hurting American farmers, with Chinese importers not buying soybeans from the autumn US harvest due to the ongoing trade war. Autumn is normally the prime marketing season for US soybeans as farmers bring in fresh crops from their fields and global buyers wait for top supplier Brazil to harvest its next crop. China, the world's top soybean importer, has turned to South America for supplies while it avoids US crops, pressuring soybeans futures at the Chicago Board of Trade. Russia says that it is still awaiting a response from US President Donald Trump regarding President Vladimir Putin's proposal to voluntarily maintain limits on deployed strategic nuclear weapons. The proposal, made last month, suggests that both countries adhere to the limits set out in the 2010 New START Accord, which is set to expire in February. Russia's UN ambassador, Vasily Nebenzia, stated that no official response has been received from the US administration yet, attributing the delay to the administration's busy schedule with the UN General Assembly. Chile's Energy Minister Diego Pardo announced that the country will scale back its green hydrogen production targets due to a global slowdown in the industry. This decision reflects a worldwide trend with developers cancelling projects and reducing investments. Despite this, several large-scale green hydrogen projects in Chile have received environmental permits or are nearing approval. The adjustment in targets will be published before the current administration's term ends in March 2026. San Diego's Cabrillo National Monument has been closed to visitors as the U.S. federal government shut down due to a budget impasse in Congress. The shutdown occurred despite a contingency plan allowing open-air sites to remain open with staff buildings closed. The monument commemorating Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo's historic 1542 landing on the west coast was among the affected sites. Deep partisan divisions prevented Congress and the White House from reaching a funding deal, setting off what could be a long, grueling standoff that could lead to the loss of thousands of federal jobs. Over the last half-century, the 20 previous shutdowns have lasted, on average, 8 days and a median of 4 days. OpenAI has struck a major deal with Samsung and SK Hynix to power its $500 billion Stargate project, an ambitious AI infrastructure push backed by SoftBank, Oracle, and the Trump administration. The announcement comes after OpenAI CEO Sam Altman's meeting with South Korean President Lee Jae-myung in Seoul. The partnership will see Samsung and SK ramp up advanced chip production. And this is to meet OpenAI's soaring demands. OpenAI also signed a separate deal with SK Telecom, South Korea's top wireless carrier, and other Samsung affiliates to explore a local AI hub that is called Stargate Korea. Now, according to a Financial Times report, the UK government has revived its demand for Apple to provide access to British users' iCloud data. Unlike before, this time the request is limited to UK citizens. However, it could still strain ties with Washington, which has criticized foreign moves to regulate Silicon Valley. London wants Apple to build a backdoor for law enforcement access, something which the tech giants have long opposed. Earlier this year, a similar push led Apple to drop full end-to-end encryption for its UK customers. Meta has said that starting December 16th, it will be using people's interactions with Meta AI to personalize content and advertising across Facebook, Instagram, and other apps with no option to opt out. Users' interactions with Meta's AI features, whether by voice or text, will be added to existing data. This will include users' likes and follows to shape recommendations on its platforms, including reels and ads. However, sensitive topics such as religion and health will be excluded. The rollout will begin in most regions on the 16th of December and will expand over time, except in the EU, UK, and South Korea. Elon Musk has become the first person to reach a net worth of $500 billion as his companies Tesla and SpaceX soared in valuation. Musk's wealth hit $500 billion, driven by a surge in Tesla stock prices and growth in SpaceX space exploration contracts. And this marks a historic milestone, solidifying his status as the world's richest individual. Although Musk's wealth is volatile, this achievement particularly has thrust him further into the spotlight as a global icon of tech and entrepreneurship. India's GST collections jumped 9% year-on-year to $100 billion in September, reflecting a strong economic recovery. The figures are in line with expectations, with the services sector showing significant growth. The government attributed the rise to increased economic activity and improved compliance amid post-pandemic recovery. The rise in revenue provides a boost to public finances, with officials hoping to maintain this momentum as the festive season approaches. Analysts believe that the trend of strong GST revenue could continue, providing crucial support to government spending plans. Oil prices rose from recent lows as investors anticipated tighter sanctions on Russian crude exports. Brent crude climbed to around $65.5 a barrel, while US WTI advanced to near $62. Market sentiment was bolstered by expectations of a decrease in Russian oil supply due to new European sanctions and limited exports. Analysts note that while the rebound is welcome for producers, the volatility in global oil markets is expected to continue, with demand and geopolitical risks driving fluctuations. Gold prices extended a 5-day rally driven by expectations that the Federal Reserve may soon cut interest rates. The yellow metal reached $3,860 per ounce amid concerns over the US government shutdown and the impact on economic growth. Investors turned to safe haven assets, including gold, as political uncertainty and a potential US economic slowdown weighed on markets. Analysts note that gold's momentum could persist if the Federal Reserve signals a more dovish stance in response to economic headwinds. And Australia began their Women's ODI Cricket World Cup title defence by beating New Zealand by 89 runs. Australia was reduced to 128 for 5 in the 22nd over, but Ashley Gardner scored 115 runs off 83 balls to help Australia post a total of 326 runs. Gardner's century was the first ever by a batter at number 6 or lower in the tournament's history, and the third fastest century in the Women's Cricket World Cup. In response to this, New Zealand had a poor start and never recovered in the chase. They were bowled out for 237 in the 43rd over, despite captain Sophie Devine's 111. 16th consecutive ODI victory against New Zealand. Former Indian cricketer Ravichandran Ashwin remained unsold in the first ever auction of the ILT20. Ashwin, who had retired from international cricket in 2024 and from IPL earlier this year, had set his base price at $120,000, the highest in the auction, and had the 39-year-old been selected, he would have been the third Indian to play in the UAE-based T20 league this season, with Dinesh Karthik set to turn up for Sharjah Warriors and Piyush Chawla for Abu Dhabi Knight Riders. Gail Monfils has announced that he'll retire at the end of the 2026 season. Monfils turned professional in 2004 and has won 13 ATP titles. He has never won a Grand Slam or an ATP 1000 tournament. Monfils in January became the oldest player to win an ATP Tour title at the age of 38 years, 132 days. The 39-year-old Frenchman said that he feels incredibly lucky to have played during a golden era of tennis alongside Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Andy Murray and Andy Roddick. Monfils is married to Ukrainian player Elena Svitolina in 2021, and the couple have a daughter together.